Welcome you to Spring Cleaning Your Important Papers, What, Keep, and When. And this program is being taught by myself, Katelyn Andersen, and I'm the Extension Agent in Ravalli County. So let me switch over to the PowerPoint presentation. And while I'm doing that, I would like to hear why did you come to the program today? What made you come? You can go ahead down to the chat box and just give me a few things as to what made you decide to log on to this video today. It looks like I have some crickets of no one responding, and that's okay. So we'll get started with that program. Oh, that looks like we have too much paper. Someone was cleaning and wasn't even sure which papers were important to keep. And someone else shared that it's always new ideas of how to keep organized. Another one shares is that everyone, it's important to keep everything and be confident in what they're keeping. And to get rid of those unnecessary papers, absolutely right. So I am going to close out of this program, and then I'm going to get started on the presentation. So if this is your first extension program with Montana State University, I'm glad you're here. We have a network of extension agents across the state of Montana who usually we have classes that are face-to-face. And this is a unique opportunity where we're able to provide a noontime class over the noon hour every day in April just to help us pass that time. So if you haven't logged on to another webinar, I encourage you to take a look at the other events that we have coming up. So one of the most important things with extension is understanding those stages of behavior. And in extension, oftentimes we know that people may have a general idea about something. Like for example, we may know that we have some important papers, but we don't know exactly what we should keep and what we should not keep. And that may be that next step of like that obstacle of what is making you not want to make that decision. And so in extension, we like to get you to a behavior change. And so today we're going to give you some resources to help you make the decision a little bit easier. And then overall, hopefully when you're in that crisis or that time that you really need that important paper, you go to your files and it's there beautifully shining for you. But I want to tell you, I have a confession. I hate to organize. I have the skills to organize, but I don't enjoy it. And so my MO is that I'll stash it and I'll deal with it later. So where I like to stash it is in my kitchen cabinet underneath my junk drawer. That's my good old basket there. I also like to stash stuff out in my garage. I have 2 boxes of paperwork, and I'll tell you what those ones are here in a little bit. And I also have some files that are in my linen closet up on the top shelf. And you notice that I have my passport sitting there and I need to put it away. And so Katelyn is saying, yes, I'm speaking my language. So I wanted you to know that I am not someone who's all has these beautiful things that you would need. And for that, you should just Google it. There are lots of people who are much more organized and have a beautiful demonstration of how they keep things organized. For me, I need to have it where I need to be, and when I need it, I know that it's there. And I'm going to share that my 3 places that I have my paperwork could work for you, but ultimately, I want you to find the system that works for you. So anytime you have a new stage or a change in your life is a good time to have a complete examination of your important documents and papers. And for me, that's usually every year when I get all of my tax paperwork together to pass over to my accountant. And because if you think back to that this underneath my junk drawer. That's where I keep all of my paperwork that I need for that year in a capsule. And so at that time, every February, I gather things up and I put paperwork where I need to. I have my medical paperwork, I have my volunteer paperwork, I have all of the bills that have come through for like my motor registration and my husband's W-2s. And so at that time in my year, I clip everything together and I file it away. I give things to the accountant and then I file things into the linen closet filing cabinet. And that's why that one picture of my passports are still sitting there. I just haven't put it away yet. So if you've had a marital status change, or you've had children, or you've lost a family member, or maybe you moved to a state, or heck, even a new town or a new house, or maybe you found a little more time with COVID-19. I know a lot of people are organizing things and getting into their cabinets and really using this time to get things cleaned out. And so maybe after this webinar, you might be able to find a little bit of time to clean up those paperwork. But the first and probably the most important step is to make that appointment with yourself. So promise yourself that you're going to enjoy that pedicure or enjoy that glass of wine that you have been putting off, that as soon as you make that appointment with yourself to set aside some time to work on getting your paperwork in order, it will make things a little bit easier. At the end of the program, we're going to be setting some SMART goals. And so think about what would be that carrots at the end of to push you beyond just knowing that you should put your paperwork together, but actually getting it done. And I will promise you, now is an easier time than when you're in that emergency situation, when you need those paperworks organized and that you need that document that is needed to give to somebody else. So Montana State University Extension has hundreds of mock guides on a variety of topics that are developed by faculty members and specialists to help you help yourself. And the one that we're using today is Your Important Papers, What to Keep and Where. And inside, it helps you understand. It's 8 pages of goodness to help you determine where you should keep paperwork, what type of paperwork you should be kept at home, which legal documents should you keep maybe in your safe deposit box or even with your attorney. And while you may have those paperwork that is off away from your home, you can also have copies of it in various places. In this paperwork, it also shows you where you should keep it. So the permanent and semi-permanent records on the screen, I'm showing you a PDF, a picture of the what to keep and where. It has the family records as well as property records and financial records. And hopefully it's not meant to necessarily have you write down your notes. Afterwards, I will send you a PDF of this document. It has it outlined in items to keep, the reason for keeping it, and then helping you determine how long you should keep it. And sometimes, for example, a birth certificate or an immunization record, those are things that are indefinite. You keep it forever. But there's some things like maybe a membership organization or a keys to a safe deposit box or a car. You keep it until that property is sold or the safe deposit box is relinquished, where it's no longer any need to have it. I know that I open up my junk drawer sometimes and I find these keys and I'm like, where are these going? And so it's important to just kind of keep a record of that information. There's also paperwork that you should carry with you, and these have changed over the years. At one point, your Social Security card, people would keep that in your wallets or in your purse to have it with you, but it's no longer used as a way for identification because it is linked to your important financial records. So the things that you should keep with you are your credit and electronic banking cards, your driver's license, your auto insurance card, if you have any type of a donor card, medical information, especially if you have any allergies or medical diseases, your health insurance card, and your personal identification. And if you have a doctor that's preferred. There's another recommendation that Extension has, and this is something in those cases of emergency. It's called a grab and go box. It could be a box, it could be a beautiful one like the one that you would Google, or it could be a backpack. But it's just a grab and go emergency bag, box or file to keep for when you have those unexpected evacuations. And some of those evacuations that come to mind are when we have a wildfire that comes screaming down one of our valleys, or the unexpected flood, where you expect that it's not coming to your house, but it may just happen, or that tragic event if you have a house fire. These are things where you know that you have the information that you need and you can put it there. And so that includes some of the things that you would maybe have in your car, such as credit or electronic banking information, your driver's license, your birth certificates, insurance information, such as your auto, health, medical, or home insurance, medical information, including your immunization records, household information. And this is where this is probably a little bit more important. Think about if your cell phone was not with you. And this goes down to also the list of important phone numbers. Kind of think through those worst case scenarios. So if you had to leave your house and you needed to walk away, what things do you need to have with you? I know that I wouldn't be able to get a hold of my parents if I didn't have my cell phone because they've changed their numbers over the years and I just don't have it memorized. And so if there's something that if you lost your charger for your cell phone and you couldn't reactivate it, what things would you need? And there's things that are saved on my personal computer that I don't remember the password and I don't remember the users' names. And so that's where you may want to just keep that file of all the information that you would be able to access and help you restore that information later. Also in this grab and go emergency, you would have some extra keys as well as cash. Now, this is just more for your important papers. I would also recommend having some food that you would need for a couple of days until you can get on the road. I know with this pandemic, toilet paper was a really important aspect, and I do plan once we get through this pandemic to stock up on some toilet paper because the next time that we have an emergency, chances are that everybody's going to run for the toilet paper. And I hope you just giggle with that. Also, the University of Minnesota Extension has some great paperwork as well for keeping track of your important papers. They call it the roadmap for important papers. And it kind of gives you the back history of where everything is in your paperwork. It has your legal name, your social security, your spouse's information, your children and your grandchildren. And this is just kind of something that's kind of like that template of what's in your files, but just a quick information of everything that you have. It also has your savings bonds, real estate, vehicles. It's about 8 pages that they have mapped out for you to fill out information on what you have. And so this would be something that would also go in that grab and go box, kit, bucket, anything that you have that you plan to vacate your house with. And these are the details that keep me up at night when I think, if something were to happen to me, would my husband know where to go? And so if this gives you a peace of mind, this is one of those steps that you could take to just have that everything really prepared and ready to go for you. Now, as you're going through your paperwork, you may realize that you don't have the paperwork that you thought you did. It may have gotten shredded accidentally, or maybe it just never got to your files and it's just lost. The University of Minnesota Extension also has a guide on replacing those important papers. So it's 3 pages long and it has some important information of where to go to contact that information. Now it's primarily designed for the Midwest area, like some of these for the driver's license and the birth certificates. It does help you find, though, what department you would need to talk to in Montana. And if you need help finding those offices, please reach out to me and I'm willing to help you do that. Some other ideas when you're going through that financial checkup is to follow through and check on the beneficiary designations. I know at one point my husband had his best friend listed. He was 30 when we got married, and so he had already invested in some in his 401k, and he had his best friend listed, and he thought he had changed it. And when we were doing a checkup about 10 years ago, we discovered that his best friend was still getting all the money and not me, his loving wife. So it's important to just check up on that and to make sure that those people are truly what you want to pass your beneficiaries on to. Also check titles on your property for the similar reasons. It's easier when you have a spouse to have them listed, but you also have to make sure that you want to have them on that contractual agreement. Dr. Marcia Getting, she's our economic specialist. She has a lot of webinars coming up on some estate planning, and one in particular is on your financial agreements. So check on your, maybe have some plans on your funerals, and list out that important computer information. Like I shared earlier, if you had to leave your house, what things are the most important and how would you be able to restore it? Some people feel comfortable putting things on the cloud. Other people would not. Some people may want to just put it on a USB drive, or you may just feel comfortable photocopying all this information and sending it to a person that you trust that is outside of your area. Now in the Midwest, they of course have floods and hurricanes and tornadoes come through their area, and they may need to leave the whole premise, their whole area. And so for them, they recommend even sending it to someone out of state where they may not be impacted by the same way that you may be impacted. And in Montana, I think about fires and floods, but we may not really think about sending it beyond where we live. Another thing that you might want to file is maybe that love letter with your will, the one that that may just bring a little bit of comfort when the unknown comes along and someone is going through that paperwork that you created for them or organized for them. Now, a lot of people are concerned about consumer fraud, and it does happen in Montana. It can happen to anyone. And so it's important to get rid of, to have a place where you put those credit card offers, those old bank statements, credit card information and statements, any old information that you don't want someone else picking up. And this picture here is my glorious 2 boxes of junk mail that comes along. And so I put it junk mail and credit card statements or credit card offers and paperwork that I do need to shred. It's not glorious, it's not glamorous, it's not beautiful, but it does work for me. When I go through my mail, I know exactly where to put it rather than storing it and stashing it somewhere on my counter. I put it out in my garage and I just put it there, and it's away from out of sight, out of mind, and I don't have to deal with it until the spring. So some people shred them at home. And so if you're thinking about where you what to do with the things that you shred, you can donate it to dog shelters after you've shredded it yourself. You can put it in flower beds as a weed retardant. You can also use it as a buffer in postal packages, as well as compost. What I like to do is I wait for the day that my bank or financial institution has a shred day. Several banks in my area have a day where you just shred your important papers. Here in Ravalli County, it usually happens in the spring. And so when my financial institution sends me that postcard saying we're having a shred day, that is when I put it on my calendar. I have a date with myself to load up those boxes, and then I take it to them and they shred. And that is the system that works for me. So another option is to also to protect yourself with that consumer fraud is to freeze your credit information. And this is a screenshot of the Federal Trade Commission with consumer information. It has some frequently asked questions on credit freezing of what is it, and what it is that it restricts access to your credit report, which in turn makes it difficult for identity theft to occur. So you may be thinking, well, what if someone needs to check my my credit score? It doesn't necessarily affect your credit score depending on who is checking it. But it does come back with a message saying that this account, the credit report is frozen. And so it doesn't come across as somebody who doesn't have any credit. It doesn't show a bad mark. It just says that your information is frozen. So Montana has a form letter to write to the 3 credit reporting companies, and those are TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And it has a letter that you just kind of, a form letter that you fill out, and then you can send it to those 3 companies that even has the address spelled out on it for you. And this is through the Department of, the Montana Department of Justice with the Montana Department of Justice, and it talks about the identity theft and security freeze. Once again, I'll be sharing this information with you on that event on Facebook. So who can still access a credit file? Like I was saying earlier, a creditor who requests that file will get a message or a code indicating that the file is frozen. So you will, when you have a security freeze on your credit file, certain entities can't access it. So those, your credit report will still be updated. And so that credit score won't necessarily be affected. It will be that you need to still opt out of any credits offers that come in your way. There is a way to reduce all that paperwork. I probably need to do that myself because I get a lot of offers in the mail. So now that we know some information and know you have some tools that are going to be coming your way of how to organize, let's make a SMART goal. And so I don't know if you have a sheet of paper, but go ahead and get that sheet of paper out, or that pen and paper, or maybe your cell phone, and you can make a note to yourself. Some of you may have heard about SMART goals, and SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And so specific, what I mean is you need to define your expectations. Measurable means that you have a quality, a quantity, a timeliness, and even costs that go along with it. Achievable means that you would have need to have a check-in with yourself of whether or not these goals are manageable for yourself, and is it applicable to your life under relevant. And also time-bound, the date that you need to complete your goal. And I knew my dog was going to start barking at some point. Oh my goodness. So the next step is, here's an example. Of that SMART goal is that you plan to purchase the supplies for managing my papers. The measurable aspect would be I will purchase 2 filing boxes, find a shred box, and set up a short-term hold box. And the check-in with myself is this achievable? Yes, I have the finances to purchase those boxes, and I have the time. Is it relevant? Yes, I need to get my paperwork in order. And so when am I going to complete this? I'm going to complete it by April 24th of 2020, which is next Friday. And hopefully by then we'll know more information about our shelter-in-place status. So thinking about your goal, make sure that it's specific, it's measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And so with that, I'm going to exit out of my PowerPoint, and I am going to start a poll. So go ahead and get some responses on the poll. And if you have any questions, please put them into the chat box, or you can take yourself off mute. And as you complete that, I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the programs that we have scheduled. Tomorrow is the Financial and Healthcare Power of Attorney, taught by Dr. Marcia Gadding, and she is our professor and Extension Family Economics Specialist. On Friday, we have Getting Started with Your Pressure Cooker, and some people refer to your pressure cooker or the electric pressure cooker as an Instant Pot. It's one of the brand names that people are familiar with. This next Monday at noon, we have Cooking with Kids, and that's going to be taught by Jasmine Carbajal, and she's our MSU Extension Agent in Hill County. And next Tuesday, we have talk with a dietitian with our Associate Director of MSU Extension, Dr. Suzanne Sluka. And then next Wednesday, we have What's Available in Your Pantry, taught by Carrie Krug, our Extension Agent in Richland County. And then next Thursday is Legal Ways to Avoid Probate on Your Estate, taught by Dr. Marcia Getting, and she's the same presenter that's presenting tomorrow, our Family and Economic Specialist. So it doesn't look like any other questions have come into the chat box. I appreciate you taking the time out of your life. All the resources that I shared will be placed in the Extension Facebook page through MSU Ravalli County Extension. I actually have it scheduled to start those links to be posted starting at 1 o'clock today. And if you have any questions, feel free to also reach out to our office. I'm putting my email address in the chat as right now. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more. Have a great day.